Hello, welcome to episode 6 of the Design Tales. I'm Ambah, a knit designer. I create patterns for knitters, and on this podcast I talk about the patterns, usually as I'm releasing them, new patterns. I talk about anything of interest around the pattern, the construction, the yarn I have used, the story behind the design process, and things like styling tips and other information that you might find useful. Sometimes I talk about older patterns too. I'll dig deep into the archives and share some of the old favourites with you. And I'm happy to answer questions and talk about anything that you might be curious about. So feel free to post in the comments below if you have a question or would like to know more about a particular pattern, anything that would be interesting to you. Today is all about my newest release, the Topo Shawl, which has just been published, and I'm excited to share it. It's a triangular shawl, knit from tip, increasing to the centre, and then knit to the other end, decreasing. And it is inspired by topographical maps, as you might have figured by the name and the design of the shawl. It's garter stitch and knit in Intarsia. Here's the back of the shawl, so you can see how that looks at each colour section. And the front. The story behind Topo is that it's a collaboration. It's part of a collection from the Farmer's Daughters Fibres, a US-based yarn store and yarn company. And the collection is being released this weekend as part of the Flock Fibre Festival. And I feel very excited to be represented there over in the US, all the way here from Australia. And I'm in good company. There's at least seven designers in total in the collection included, and really beautiful designs. There's 3, I think, garments, socks, cows, hat or 2, and I think at least 1 crochet design as well. So I'll put a link below and you can check out the other designs. They're really beautiful and earthy, and of course mine is included, which is exciting for me. The collection Wool and Wonder, when I first heard about it, it was via a mood board many months ago, earlier this year, when the Farmer's Daughter company put out a call for designers for this particular collection. And the theme was camping, wandering, being in the great outdoors. And to me, it had a very vintagey feel to it. Included in the design call mood board images was a simple line drawing topographical map, and that was enough to pique my interest and become keen to submit a design for this collection. Something else that was appealing for me was that I would maintain the rights to the pattern, that it would be published independently under my name as would all the others. So the collaboration was more about a combination of the designer and the yarn company collaborating. I, of course, received yarn support for my sample, and the Farmer's Daughters Fibres have also knit their own sample in different colourways and have taken some beautiful photos. I'll post one here now of their sample. And creating kits with the yarn that I used in different colourways. So the kits include a green themed kit, a blue themed kit, and a kit featuring the colours they used for their sample. All the samples in the collection will be physically at the Flock Festival, so people can go and see them. And I would assume afterwards in their store as well, that you would be able to see those samples. And it was nice, I got to keep mine instead of sending it over to America. So I still have mine here with me, which is lovely for me. And yeah, I get to talk to you about it today. So my design process for this was, after being inspired by the map, I started Googling topographical maps and looking at maps, and found myself resonating with some beautiful vintage, colourful topographical maps that had these kind of colour tones, or just muted, earthy colours, or blues. There were quite a few that inspired me. And so initially I worked on the design. I decided I wanted to make the triangular shape and sketched out a topographical representation within that, and figured out how many colours I would use, and then drew that up and coloured in several versions of it with different colourways and colour themes. And that was what I submitted to the Farmer's Daughters Fibres as my design submission. I was pretty excited about it. I think I would have knit it anyway, even if they didn't include it in the collection. But to my delight, they did include it and sent me some yarn so I could knit it up. I decided to go with the earthy colour palette, with also little bright pops as well, which is the Colour 4 colour. And yeah, before long they'd sent the beautiful yarn to me, which, when Candice asked me which yarn I'd like to use, I said I'd like something rustic, DK weight, something that would be good for the Intarsia and nice and wearable for a shawl. And she suggested a couple, and the one I chose was the Pishkin, Farmer's Daughters Pishkin, which is Rambouillet, which is a fibre I'm not that familiar with. It's got a double ply twist and is described as bouncy, and I would agree with that. It's really doesn't have a overly rustic feel to it. It's very soft and worked beautifully in this project. Just such a lovely yarn. It bloomed nicely when I blocked it, and the colours are so beautiful and vibrant. These are very much signature colours of the Farmer's Daughters collection. They sent me a couple of extras so I could play around with a few options within my colour scheme, and I'm pretty keen to knit more with this yarn. It's the first time I've used it, and I'm certainly would be happy to use it again. It's just gorgeous. It's like so soft. I think I'd like to make a garment with it. It feels like it would wear well. So I got knitting on my Topo Shawl, and it felt pretty ambitious, as in there's no pattern repeats. Every stitch was individually charted out for the whole pattern. So I began by, with chart paper, taping it and creating size and shape represented with a little chart square. So I literally had a full-size paper roll. I scrolled it. It was definitely a scroll that I then drew out the pattern using my sketch design as the basis of that. I drew it onto the chart, the giant chart that I'd created in the shape of this shawl, with the shaping already worked out in that, and coloured it in. Worked, as I said, to the design I'd submitted, and rolled it up, and just gradually worked my way through actually knitting it. And part of that process is trial and error too. The knitting off the chart for the first time, there were a few places where I knit as I had drawn it and realised it wasn't quite right or wasn't quite going to work, so I ripped back a little bit and re-knit. And I had myself set up at the dining table. I'd taken over one end of it for this project. I just wanted it to be to take my time, take each stitch slowly and work my way through. It wasn't really one of those kind of mindless couch projects by any means. For me, it was a focused project. And because every single stitch is charted, unfortunately, the pattern itself is only charted. I haven't got a corresponding written version of this. So sorry to those people who do only work off written instructions. This pattern unfortunately won't be for you. However, I did have a lovely large group of secret testers. This was all kept top secret. So we had a Discord tester group where we hung out and they showed their beautiful works. And it was just so exciting every time a chart was completed or the whole project. They all look amazing. They all chose different colorways and variations of color combinations. And I just love them all. They're beautiful. So you can see a lot of those beautiful projects on Ravelry connected to the pattern page. And also, if you look up the hashtag Topo Shawl on Instagram, you'll see a few of them popping up there as well. And some might be tagged with me, Ambah O'Brien. They're definitely worth going and checking out. Just beautiful results. Some of them quite muted, some of them with bright pop contrasts, and everything in between. Really exciting. The pattern also includes a template so that you can colour in while you're working out the colours that you'd like to use for your project. And I would say it's a good leftovers yarn project as well. You only need small amounts for colour 4, and colour 1 uses the most. I think it's around 200 yards off the top of my head, and maybe around 175 yards for each of colour 2 and 3. So if you've got partial skeins lying around, this would be a good project. And you can also, it's DK weight, but you could also hold a fingering weight doubled if you didn't have DK weight. Yeah, so this is a DK light worsted. It would also work well with a light worsted yarn. If you're new to Intarsia, I have a tutorial on YouTube with a simple Intarsia download that you can use to practice Intarsia with. So if it's something you've been wanting to have a try, I'll pop a link to that in the description below so you can download there's a little chart to try out and a video to accompany it, and have a go yourself if you like. So you could practice before trying something a little bit more complicated, like the Topo Shawl. I also have some simpler perfect for first Intarsia patterns as well that I've released this year. Snaggletooth, the Aurora Hunter's Shawl are both great first Intarsia patterns because they only use 2 colours at a time, so you're not juggling more than 2 colours. Apart from that, it's such a fun technique, you get such a fantastic result with it, and it's not really that hard. You just need to pay attention. You're just knitting and sometimes purling as well, and the trick is in just making sure you lock the yarns together when you change colours and manage the yarns while you're knitting. They can get a bit messy when you've got a few colours at once, which is also why I find sitting at a table good, because I can kind of manage my colours a bit more readily, or use a tray so I can keep the yarns on there rather than them getting all tangled up together. So I think that's about all I have to share about this shawl. Maybe a couple of styling moments. Whereas this shape I always like to wear in the kerchief style, with the widest part at the front and the ends dangling down like that. It can also be worn over the shoulders, wrapped around. It's a pretty decent length. You can tie it up, bring it round and tie it in the front, or even bring it back around. Or more scarf-like by folding it in half, and so it's a bit narrower for wrapping around like a scarf a bit more. So there's a few ways that you can wear the Topo Shawl. And I hope you'll be inspired to give it a go. Thanks for watching. I'll be back again soonish with a fresh design for you. In the meantime, let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about future episodes. See ya.